What's up, guys? So I'm still dicking about in Blitzland, and I thought that I'd share 3 of my most recent games, all with the black pieces and all using the F5 break, early F5 against different openings. So this first one will be against the Rousseau. So I'm like in mid 1300s right now in Blitz. So I figure that like when I get to 1400, it's probably a sign that I've learned these openings quite well enough to go back to start playing them in rapid in anger. So okay, so this is the kind of the common starting point, right? So e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and from this the game can go in many different directions. Okay, the most common are the Italian, particularly below title level or advanced level. You have the Spanish, which gets more popular later on. You've got the Scotch with d4, and you've also got this fellow, whatever that's called. Can't remember what it's called. What is it called? It's called a Ponziani. Anyway, so we'll refresh this one there. And there is an anti-Ponziani thing as well. So, right, so start again. Okay, so this one's in the Italian and immediate f5 on move 3. Okay, and this is the Rousseau Gambit. I've shared a few games in this. Here we have d3, which I think is maybe the best move for white. I bring out my bishop. We've always got an eye on this, always got an eye on it. As soon as this knight moves, we have to be just check that we can handle any queen h6 check, and that is a common theme, right? So this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to recycle, because I'm not that good at remembering everything. I want to recycle the same ideas, right? Sometimes you can play g6, sometimes you can't. For example, if there's a knight that can capture g6, it can be problematic, or if white has a pawn that can capture g6 again. So anyway, knight c3, I bring out my knight, just for good measure. It's good principal play anyway. d6 is also an option. d5 I don't think is an option here, because it's got 1, 2, 3 attackers on it. And castles, and now I play d6. And here, again, a common theme, you're just waiting for white to capture here, right? Like when you play the French, you're waiting for white to capture on c5, and then you recapture with your bishop, gives you free development, and a nice pawn center. So here, white's knight flies into the middle, into the fray, right? So, you should never immediately, instinctively, always just capture. Because if I capture here, it might capture with a pawn, and then I'm going to have to move my other knight. Or he might capture with the bishop, I don't know. But what I think is, let's close the position down, f4. And this is a typical move in the Rousseau. And this takes us now into the Jaenisch Gambit area. And the Jaenisch is a whole area in itself, which you can play, again, from the Italian. So now c3 is pushed. I'm guessing maybe white's thinking about this kind of idea, but I've got 1, 2, 3 pieces controlling that. He's going to have 1, 2, 3 as well. So now I trade knights. Pawn takes, and now I bring my knight around. He brings his rook over to e1, meaning now that the king is the only piece guarding f2. Still got another minor piece to get out, so where's natural for that? Bishop g4. Pin this knight. It's not a blow to the head, but it's just an annoyance that white's got to think about. Might prompt him to push h3 and weaken his king a little bit. He doesn't. He pushes d4. Now, my bishop is now looking kind of on house arrest in this corner of the board. So, big question, do I want to take here? Yeah. So I decide to take. Knight, remember, is frozen, can't recapture. Queen can't recapture because you lose queen to the bishop. So it's going to have to be the pawn. But if pawn takes, which is the move that was played, now white has these 2 isolated and doubled pawns. It's not fantastic. And also my bishop now has a slightly better square to go to because his pawn's disappeared. I can now harass this rook. So where's the rook going to go? The rook moves forward to e2, which means this knight is still pretty much pinned. It's just not pinned against the queen, it's now pinned against the rook. Okay, black still hasn't castled. So queen d7. Line up my queen and this bishop. Adds a defender to the bishop. It's no bad thing. Getting ready maybe to castle long. Rook now comes up, sniffing around this undefended pawn there. So let's give it a defender. g5. Right? Does a couple of things. Defends the pawn and starts to push pawns up towards the enemy king. What's not to like? Queen comes down now, having a sniff around my bishop. And here, rather than immediately try and defend my bishop, take out the knight, right? And this is more forcing, because now if queen takes bishop, I get a whole rook. So I'm up a rook. He cannot allow that. He's going to have to take back with the pawn. But he doesn't. He takes back with the queen. I take his rook. I now have a hanging pawn here. Remember, this is blitz, so boom. Oh no. Bishop b5 looks terrible. But is it? Is it that bad? I have c6. c6 there. And if pawn takes, pawn takes. He just didn't count his attackers and defenders, right? I still have 3 defenders on that pawn. So the bishop now retreats. And now he's down 2 pieces. Well, he's basically down a full rook, right? And now it's time to go in for the kill. So queen in here, threatening mate in 1. I'm really not worried. You know, he could capture there with his queen if he wants to, but it's not going to save him. He pushes forwards, but I can capture that pawn because its only defender is pinned. And he missed that. So now again I'm threatening mate in 1 on here. What can he do? Drop the queen back to defend the pawn. I drop my bishop back. Sorry about the growling going on in the background. Dogs are having fun. Okay, now let's bring in another piece that's not doing anything. Knight comes in. Queen moves. Just bring up my king now. Get out of check. Defend this pawn another time. Also gives me the opportunity to move either rook to e8 and harass the queen. Bishop comes out with nothing. And mate. That's it, right? So, in fact, I had mate on the previous move, didn't I? Oh no, I was in check, so I had to move out of there. And then mate, okay? So my opponent lost that game in less than 1 minute 40 seconds of his own clock. So lots of fun. Now let's look at the second one. And we'll see some similar themes coming up. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6. And now we have the Spanish, the Ruy Lopez, with bishop b5. Previous game we had the Italian with the bishop coming out to here. Again we push f5. Now here we have knight takes, right? Which is just a blunder because he loses his whole knight. Pawn takes. I mean, there are some tricky lines around these openings where they can get the piece back, but not in this instance. Okay, I develop my other knight. Pushes a pawn to harass me. I come back here. Right, I'm already up a piece. Yeah, it's for 2 pawns, but good enough. If he wants to trade off, I will happily trade off. He decides not to trade. I kick the bishop, give it a poke. Come on, bishop, what are you going to do? Bishop says, I'm not trading off at this point. And quite wisely, I think, to be fair. Because with a board like this, black's got no pawns out in the board. It's wide open. It's bishop territory, right? So now we break the pin, also avoiding any checking ideas down the e-file, and also preparing to castle. 3 moves to the price of 1. Castles, castles. Now, because Freddie is gone, my rook defends the knight. I see there's a lot. Pawn pushes down. Pawn pushes up, trying to block things off. Rook looks at my bishop, but it is defended twice. So now I recapture my pawn, and now I'm +2. I'm up a knight for just 1 pawn. Queen comes down here now looking at this, and then we have to count attackers and defenders. 2 attackers, 2 defenders right now. But I would like to get out of this pin from the bishop. First I throw in b5 and push this bishop back, and now queen d6. So I'm still defending this bishop, but now this knight is not actually free to move. Before that I need to put a rook behind the bishop, because if I move my knight, that's going to be 1, 2, 3 attackers, isn't it? With only 2 defenders, so that wouldn't work. He pushes a pawn. I move my rook from a8 to e8. Also notice that this move maybe becomes playable, because the queen can't be the first to capture the the knight because she falls to a knight. Okay, so rook comes back here. So now my knight can move if it wants to. And queen moves to the side. My knight moves forwards. And this is pretty devastating because this is now a fork on the queen and a second attacker on the bishop as well. Queen moves down to there. And here I capture with my bishop. My bishop is defended by the knight's defended by that, and here white just resigns. Okay, so I mean that's a 1267 player, but you know, I'll take it. I'll take it all. I've been hovering around 1250 for a few weeks. So game number 3, and this looks like Levy Rosman here. Where's Corner from Canada? I don't think it is the real Gotham chess, because well, let's see. So e4, e5, knight out, and now we have the 3 knights. So this is another variation that you might see from this same position. Knight comes out, and guess what? We've still got f5. This is known as the Winawer defense. Pawn takes. And now the difference here is that in the other openings, when there isn't a knight out here, because there's a bishop here or here instead, the move is to push e4. You can't do that now because you just lose your pawn. Okay? So I can't just push that. So bishop flies out now, meaning that if the d pawn ever moves, the knight will be pinned. I'm also threatening just to take out the knight, mess up his pawns, and then push this. Okay, he does the same thing, flies his bishop out. My knight comes out to f6. Takes. His d pawn is still there, so there's no danger of a queen swap. And now, because I've captured with my d pawn, I'm now looking at the f5 pawn. He takes my pawn. So white did to me what I was threatening to do to white. He takes my pawn, but then queen e7 pins the knight against the king. He could castle. Could he castle now? Because I can't take, because then rook e1 and my queen is stuck. So I can't. Okay, he doesn't castle. He counter pins. I bring out my bishop now, looking at c2, which is now undefended because the queen's moved. He castles. I take c2. Free stuff, why not? Rook over to here now. But I have time. Okay, I have time to get my king out of the way and my queen out of the way, because it's my turn, then his turn, then my turn again. So, castles. Happy days, right? Now, and I'm checking that the knight can't move with check. If the knight could move with check, that could be very unpleasant, because my queen is, you know, staring down at white's queen and my queen. Oh no, actually my queen is defended by the bishop, so that's not the end of the world. He pushes his pawn forward now, with the queen now threatening my bishop, so what can I do? Interesting place to pause and think. I do have 2 attackers on this pawn. And so, let's say, if I take, knight takes, right? I can take his queen, and then I can simply recover my piece. I'm actually up a pawn, right? Oh, but here I take the knight. I take the knight and up the danger levels with an attack against the rook. Gosh, so he takes, and now I retreat. Okay, well, that's another solution. Well done, Hunty. I appreciate my own game sometimes. Outflies his bishop. Material here is equal. So my queen comes out now, attacking this. Also vaguely attacking the knight, and also vaguely attacking the bishop behind the knight as well. White here doesn't want to get rid of his bishop because of the way the board is. Rook comes across to defend the pawn. One of my rooks comes across now, pinning the knight. Okay, but he can defend with this. Also comes with tempo, and that's what he plays, attacking my queen. So what do we do here? Just slide across d5, right? Still wanting to look at the king. This is blitz, you know. I'm always thinking about attacking and checkmating. Maybe pawn forward, drop the bishop back, support the queen, something like that. Maybe, in some way, drop the knight in. Can't do it right now. In fact, the queen's looking at this square, so dropping the knight in there doesn't help an awful lot. Even knight here might work. Okay, queen comes across now. Don't know why. Hard to say. Not sure about that move at all. Right, so I now push c5, so it looks as though I'm going for this idea. Now, I did play this game this morning, so I ought to remember. Okay, oh, and now f4. Now, I don't like f4. I don't buy this move. It's just opened up a diag towards the king. Not great. Yes, it defends these pieces, but no, I don't know. Let's see what happens. Okay, I swing my knight back round. Now, feeling quite happy that his king is slightly more fresh air around him. Okay, white has ideas of coming in here, but my queen defends and my king defends right now. I could move my knight back if I wanted to. I could potentially move my bishop back if knight takes, queen takes, and we're still all right. But I push b6, all the same. And one reason that's good is because white doesn't have a light squared bishop. I do. So my light squared bishop is not hampered in any way by these pawns. You can't even see them. They don't exist. White, on the other hand, has only a dark squared bishop, so these pawns do create a problem for him. He takes the pawn, and now I decide to trade knights before... Oh, I don't even recapture the pawn. I've got two pawns here at my mercy, and I don't take either of them. Instead, I throw in this bishop move, hoping that my opponent will miss the fact that I'm threatening to come in here. But what I miss, of course, is the fact that his queen is defending that pawn all the same. So now I notice and recapture with my a-pawn. He brings his bishop, moves the king. It's don't know exactly why. Just getting it off the back rank, I guess. Yeah. And noticing, I mean, these are the things that you have to be saying to yourself. The queen must defend that. The queen must defend that. And you repeat that every turn. If the queen then abandons the defense of that, you know you have mate. Okay, so it's no bad thing to talk to yourself like a nutter. And there's the point of the king move. My rook's now coming across, looking at this active a-pawn. Pushes, unconcerned. I now threaten the bishop, which is undefended. So the bishop retreats to g2, still looking at mate should the queen ever abandon the defense of g2. Okay, I grab the pawn. He pushes a pawn. I come across now. Surely queen can just take. Why can't... No. What have we just said? What was I just saying, right? To 2 minutes ago. Was I listening? No, I wasn't even listening to what I was saying. Right? So this is tricky. I'm tempting the queen to capture the rook. But if the queen captures the rook, guess what? She's not doing. She's not defending that pawn. And we come with the chickadee matey mate. Okay, he's not buying it at all, but he moves his queen across, but he misses something important. Rook takes b1, rook takes b1, queen takes b1, and it's going to be all over by the shouting. The only really playable thing now is in check. The only legal move is going to be this or this. Either way, I'm just going to trade. I'm going to be up a full rook in the ending, and he's only got a minute left on the clock. So there you go. I thought that's interesting. You know, trying to give you a feel of the Freddy Krueger repertoire with the black pieces. And obviously you can see why this is designed to suit the Jaenisch Gambit player, because we're playing the same patterns but with the black pieces. And you know, I think I'm starting to feel like all this blitz kind of practice, this drilling, is starting to pay off. So watch this space. I will keep you guys informed. Okay, thanks for watching. See you later.